All right, so we're always told to chase our dreams, right? But what happens when life, just seems to do everything it can to tear those dreams apart? In this explainer, we're diving into a really powerful story. It's about a dream of going to college that got put on hold for decades. It's a story about pure resilience and all the crazy unforeseen paths we sometimes have to take to find our way back.
So, everything kicks off with this one simple but incredibly powerful dream. Our narrator, he had this idea from a very young age. He'd look at his uncles, they were both educators, really respected, and he just knew. He knew he wanted to be like them. And for him, college, that was step one.
So, where did this all start? Well, it really came from a place of just pure admiration. And in the beginning, his family was totally behind him. You see, this was never just about getting a piece of paper, a degree. For him, this was deeply personal. His own dad, he'd actually earned a golf scholarship for college, but had to give it all up to go work in a copper mine because, well, a baby was on the way. So this college dream, it wasn't just his dream. It felt like he was also trying to finish a journey that his parents never got the chance to start. Now, something tragic happened when he was only 9 years old. His mother passed away, but her memory, wow, that became this incredible source of motivation for him. He said he could just picture her face, how it would light up whenever she told people about his dream of going to college. So back then, in those early days, he felt like he had all the support in the world. He thought, yeah, this is going to happen. It's inevitable. But that sense of stability, that world where his dream felt so certain, it was about to just completely fall apart. Things were about to take a really, really dark turn. And the collapse happened so fast, it's just shocking. It all started with his mother's death. That was the trigger. His dad just started to fall apart, dealing with his own stuff. And the kids, they suddenly found themselves being shuffled between different relatives, all of whom were just filled with this anger and bitterness. We're talking about a matter of weeks. In just a few weeks, his whole world was turned upside down.
I mean, this quote just gives you a glimpse of the kind of emotional damage she was dealing with. Can you even imagine hearing that from your own grandmother? It wasn't just that things were unstable. No, this was pure chaos, and it was soaked in blame and resentment. It just made an awful situation 1,000 times worse.
Okay, so this brings us into his teenage years. And this is where the fight for his future becomes something else entirely. It turns into a daily battle for his very soul. And it was just such a strange double life. You look at him at school and he's absolutely thriving. He's in the marching band, student council. He was even prom prince, a happy social kid. But then he'd go home and he described that life as a nightmare. It was a totally different reality, where a whole other kind of war was being waged. So what was this nightmare at home? Well, it was an ideological war. His dad and his stepmom had become, religious radicals, and they were open about it. They said their number one job was to keep their kids from burning in hell. The pressure was just immense, especially when they kind of made it clear who they thought was heading in that direction. And yeah, he got the message loud and clear.
And then this happened. He actually overheard his stepmom telling his sister she should turn down a full-ride college scholarship. And she said it with these exact words. He said his ears were just on fire. The very same family that used to cheer for his college dream now saw education as a threat to their faith. I mean, the sense of betrayal must have been just absolute.
So after high school, with no support system and just crushed by all those years of chaos, he was completely lost. Just adrift in what he describes as a wilderness of failure and despair. And he really did try to make it work. He moved far away for college, but a part-time job at Burger King just wasn't going to cut it for tuition. So he had to go back home totally defeated. Then he gave it another shot, this time at a local community college, working at Dairy Queen. But he couldn't even make it through the first semester. It was just this brutal, heartbreaking cycle of trying and failing, over and over, with absolutely no safety net. And this cycle, this downward spiral, it took him somewhere really, really dark. He was just convinced that he'd fallen too far behind, that he could never succeed. He even tried to fit in by converting to his parents' church, but that just made things worse. It led to this deep insecurity and self-loathing. And that all ended in a drug addiction during what he calls the absolute worst years of his life.
But the story doesn't end there, in that dark place. Thank goodness. What comes next is the final chapter, and it's the most hopeful one. It's about the slow, really difficult, but incredible journey back to himself and back to that dream. Now, this comeback, it took a ton of work, and it was not a quick fix. At age 30, he made a promise to himself to change his life, but he relapsed. It took another 4 years, until he was 34, to finally get sober for good. And even then, another 5 years went by before he finally walked into his very first college class. He was 39 years old. 2013. Just think about that. After everything he'd been through, this was the year. The year he finally had enough stability in his life and in his job to step back into a classroom. For him, that was huge. It was a monumental moment. It was the year that changed everything. And this quote, man, this really gets to the heart of the whole thing. His idea of what success even means had totally changed. It wasn't about the diploma anymore. The real win, the real victory, was just the act of going back. It was about taking his story back. The journey itself, that was the accomplishment.
So it kind of leaves us with this big question, doesn't it? When is a dream actually fulfilled? Is it when you finally cross that original finish line? Or is it fulfilled the moment you find the courage to just get back on the path in the first place? It's just a powerful reminder, that sometimes the biggest success of all is just refusing to give up.